So, oops. So I have, now you can see my example essay, yes?
Yes.
Wonderful. All right. So I have prepared an example, the beginning of a potential example essay for that would have been a response to what you responded to earlier in class today. And I'm going to be editing this for primarily grammar and style. And so I'm going to be looking at the things that I would look at normally in an essay when I edit it, so you know exactly what I do. And I'll be looking a little bit less at the power of the arguments, but more about how they are formed and how they might make sense grammatically and stylistically. So let's get into it. This essay begins. Both The Hunger Games and The Giver present vivid and horrific pictures of a future society. And this is a pretty good beginning topic sentence. There is one edit that I'll make, and it actually has to do with the formatting of the titles of these books. This is something that's tricky and it confuses a lot of people, but the rule is with the title of a book, you don't put it in parentheses. Do you know what you do with it? You actually italicize it. So I'm going to actually remove these parentheses and I'm going to italicize. That's the rule with books. Now with poems, with other types of works, you might parenthesize. I'm sorry, I'm saying parentheses, quotation marks. I meant quotation marks, not parentheses. And so we italicize. So actually, I'm going to find and replace every time we see The Hunger Games. I'm going to replace it, if I can, with, no, I can't. Okay, I can't replace with italics, but I might just come to these when I get there. I'll just italicize each of these. So it happens throughout the essay. So that's one thing to be aware of, is we're going to italicize book titles. Okay, so good topic sentence otherwise. All right, so then we have, however, the stories can be classified as dystopias for opposite reasons. One thing here that you might have noticed yourself is we have an introductory phrase here, an introductory conjunctive adverb. However, it is an introductory phrase, adverb, because it comes directly before the subject. Okay, so the subject of this next sentence is the stories. And whenever something, a word or a group of words comes before the subject and is not in the same phrase, that is an introductory phrase. And we know from grammar that we need to put a comma between an introductory phrase and a subject. So I'm going to highlight that I just put a comma here. That is the edit. I've put a comma after however. And you can hear it in the way that I say it, that, right? Punctuation ultimately has one goal of teaching us how to say the sentence. And so if you listen to the way the sentence says, however, the stories can be classified as dystopias for opposite reasons, right? So you hear the little pause, that's the comma. That's the comma. Okay. Whereas the world in the first society is dystopian because there is too much inequality, the world of the second story is dystopian due to the fact that there is too much equality. Okay, a couple things here, and you might be noticing some things as you read it as well. Well, the first thing is, whereas this is used incorrectly. There is actually one word, whereas. So whereas is one word, not two words when it's being used in this conjunctive sense. And then let's take a look at the two clauses that are being correlated here, that are being coordinated here. So we have, whereas the world in the first society is dystopian because there is too much inequality. That's great. And then we have, on the other hand, basically, the world of the second story is dystopian due to the fact that there is too much equality. So these are both good clauses. They're grammatically correct. But now we're running into an issue of style here. So we want these to be parallel. This is where I'm going to talk about parallel structure. So we can change the second clause so that it is parallel to the first. So it looks structurally like the first. I'm going to say the world in the first story, but then I have of the second story. So there's no reason not to just say in again so that it follows the pattern. So in the second story, is dystopian because blah, blah, blah. But in this clause, we have due to the fact that there is, right? And that's not parallel. That's not parallel. So I'm just going to make it parallel by saying because. Okay, so this was I've made these parallel. If you're wondering about parallel structure, I have a great series of classes on it in Grammar 4 that teaches style. Okay, we'll blast through some more things here. The real world today lies somewhere in the middle of these two extremes, but our society more closely resembles the unequal picture painted in the Hunger Games. Okay, so this is where we're getting into our thesis. I'm going to add a comma here because one rule that we know about with commas is we need a comma after every coordinating conjunction, like but is a coordinating conjunction. I'm going to say fanboys conjunction if it's combining two clauses. Okay, so here's the evidence that we're using, or the thesis statement with its evidence, because the technology necessary in that society is more realistic than the technology in the giver, and because today's society continues to become more unequal every year, not the other way around. Okay, so I've fixed the things that I talked about in terms of style earlier, but otherwise this is a pretty good thesis statement. It has its argument and it has some evidence that's going to be laid out in the essay. Okay. Briefly moving on to the second paragraph. The first reason that Katniss Everdeen's world is better resembles the problems in today's society is that the technologies required for it is more similar than what we have today, more similar to what we have today, pardon me. So several things going on in this sentence. First of all, stylistically, I would make a comment here saying, who is Katniss Everdeen? Who is Katniss Everdeen, right? Something that you have to keep in mind when writing an essay is you might be writing an essay for somebody who doesn't know anything about the topic, right? And so I have read The Hunger Games, and so I know that when I say Katniss Everdeen, I'm referring to that book. But somebody reading this essay might not. So who is this, right? And so the way to fix this would be to introduce the fact that Katniss Everdeen is the main character of the Hunger Games, right? Maybe something like the main character of the Hunger Games. That would be one way to do it. There are many ways to make this better, but that's the important information that we need. Okay, the technologies required for it is more similar to what we have today. Well, this is a very common error. It's a common trick that you'll see on the SAT and the ACT, standardized tests. If you're planning on taking tests for college, this is a subject-verb agreement error. Okay, so we have the technologies is the subject of this clause, plural subject. And then we have, this is a participial phrase required for it that's modifying the technologies. And then we have is more similar to what we have today. Well, what's wrong with this? Of course, what's wrong is the technologies is plural, so plural subject, and a singular verb. Okay, so I'm going to say are, right? Because we need our subject and our verbs to agree. The technologies are more similar. So that is a really important one to keep in mind. Okay, few more things here. It is probably impossible to create a huge arena like they did in the books, but the rest of the society uses technology that is at least imaginable today. This looks okay to me on first pass. Again, I'm not really considering the strength of the argument itself, but really how it's conveyed and how I can understand it. And then we have, but the technology in the giver is completely impossible. We don't know how to make people exactly the same or to make pills that prevent you from seeing things right. Okay, a little bit more spoilers about the giver here. Few things I'm going to say let's not start a sentence with but. That is a general rule in grammar. You shouldn't start your sentences with coordinating conjunctions. What could we say instead? We could say, however, with a comma, right? However means the same thing as but it's a different type of conjunction that it's okay to start a sentence with, right? Again, I'm going to fix this formatting error. And then the last thing is we have a run-on sentence here, a run-on sentence that comes from two independent clauses that are combined improperly. They're combined with only a comma. A comma is not strong enough to combine independent clauses on its own. A comma is not strong enough to combine independent clauses. So I'm going to put a colon here. Okay. I'm going to put a colon here. And you can see how a colon actually makes a lot of sense in this context. So that's a first pass of the beginning of this essay. And what I might do if I were to see this essay in real life. So Jane, that's it for the grammar editing section.
Awesome. Guys, I wrote that in the chat. Commas aren't strong enough to combine independent clauses on its own. It's not.
That's right. If it were in the giver, they would not allow it to live in between.
They would not. The eugenics wouldn't let it work. Right. Awesome. Guys, oh my gosh. Also, I just want to say that we're only 1 minute over. This never ever happens. That's pretty amazing in itself. Okay. Guys, thank you all so much for hanging out with us. We have not announced the next book, but it's block out the evening of December 18th. All right, that is another Friday. So sorry that I destroy everybody's Friday every month, but thank you all so much for being here. It really means the world to us. Slack channel, yes, it is. It is somewhere. It is writing.com. 1 second. Let me just get the Slack. Slack slide out, and then center.com/writing. writingcenter.slack.com. Julia Prince, because you guys are current EWC students, I'll email you an invite link separately. But this session is recorded. It will be available online. Thank you all so much again, and go learn something in school. We will announce our book for next month very soon. All right. Thank you all so much. See you guys next month. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.